You know what we haven't had in a while? A little bit of gaming drama, you know? I feel like there's always been, at least every year, there's always been a game that's kind of just flopped or just created such drama that like everyone was up in arms, and it hasn't happened in a while, and it's kind of concerning. But the actual point of this video that I wanted to have was I was just gonna go over some of the worst flops in gaming history. Let's start. We have a couple. They're not in rank of worst to best or best to worst or anything like that. It's just how I feel like talking to you guys in order of what comes to my mind about which games have pissed off the community the most.
Hello, Guardian.
So I feel like Destiny might be the actual MVP of pissing off their community. I have seen this company, Bungie, constantly disappoint their fan base year over year over year over year. Like it's not something that even surprises me anymore because I've been playing Destiny since like Destiny 1 beta. Okay, so I played a lot, and at this point, literally, if whenever a new DLC drops, I don't even have expectations. I just play it, and if I like it, I like it. If I don't like it, well, I know what I got myself into anyways, you know? Like it's actually so bad that I feel like you could arguably like make bets on whether or not like a DLC is going to be a flop or a hit anyways, cuz it's just so roller coastery of an experience with with Bungie. It's honestly it's just part of being a fan apparently. Here's like a visual count of like the flops and the hits that I've remembered when it comes to Destiny 2. Because I am just talking about the Destiny universe, because obviously it still made Halo. I just don't have much experience with Halo, so I'm not going to talk it. You think after like 10 years, they'd figure out a way to like not piss people off every time they release something, but it's honestly like, it's like a skill they've like manifested over time for some reason. Because it's either like a bare bone DLC, no story, they're reskinning guns every other year, you know, they're either like pay gating cool stuff like the dungeons. Like, are you being serious right now? I hate that dungeon key. I feel like a dungeon key should be like, you know, part of the DLC that you purchase. It makes no sense. That or like, you know, they just straight up out of touch with the community and what they even want. So they're not great. But when they drop a banger, they drop a banger. Okay, you gotta give them that. Now I gotta like clarify here. They're definitely not the MVP of flops because Destiny's still kicking, and like right now, it's actually like doing really good. They're just the MVP of angering people that support them. As a certified Destiny unk, I gotta say it's definitely annoying the inconsistency of the company. Like, why don't they just stay with the thing that works? But no, they just love to just throw in random things. Either way, though, like throughout all their track record of game releases in general, they've definitely earned the right to be considered like a titan in the industry, and they're really good at keeping their fans on the edge of their seat, which might not be a good thing. Just it is what it is. Like honestly, every time a DLC drops, there's just like a little pit of anxiety that just forms right around here, and it just grows and grows and grows until like the actual DLC drops, and then the YouTubers make a review of the DLC. Because usually I don't buy it day one. I just wait a little bit to see if it's garbage, which really doesn't make any sense because there hasn't been a DLC where I haven't bought. I just it's like I tell myself like, oh, if it's a bad DLC, I'm not gonna buy it, but I always end up buying it anyways. So I think I have Stockholm syndrome with Destiny 2.
Mr. Fuckface, show
Alright, let's talk about Bethesda and Fallout 76. Now, before I made like the script for this video, this is before the TV show came out and everybody kind of like flocked back to the game. So this is just my opinion on when the game first dropped because I did play it afterwards and it was actually surprisingly nice. So take that with a grain of salt. This is only to do with when the game initially released. So my first Fallout game was actually Fallout 4. I absolutely fell in love with that game. Like this is my first Fallout game, first Bethesda game in general actually, and I loved it so much. I actually prefer Fallout more than Skyrim, which might make a lot of people mad, but that's just my opinion. Leave me alone. Like I've beaten it multiple times, and then like I can generally say like the actual world, I got consumed in the Fallout 4 world. So I was like very hyped when I heard about the new Fallout game that was going to be releasing, Fallout 76. To this day, that was the most hyped I've ever been for a game, not even just a Fallout game, just any game, whatever. That's the most hype that I've ever. And then, I was like, oh, cool, they're gonna make a new world, they're gonna have a new area, a new storyline. I wonder who the new protagonist is gonna be. I was super happy. And then they said, oh, it's gonna be a multiplayer game, and I was like, how's that gonna work? I was I still had faith, but I was just a little bit concerned. The concern was growing for me. Now, the excitement never really ended, even up until the release date. But when I tell you, I played Fallout 4 for 2 days when the game first released, I thought I was gonna lose like a month of my life just staying on this game when it was like first announced. I gave it 2 days of kind of trying and playing. That's all I could have done. Okay. I've never been so disappointed as I was in that game by any other game. Now, I'm not saying it's the worst, but it was definitely bad, and it was my personal worst. And I feel like that should mean a lot, because I get abused by Bungie literally every year. So I know what a bad game is. And I'm going to tell you right now, when Fallout 76 first released, it was such a bad game. So yeah, I've told you, 2 days was the best I gave it. Is ever since, it's been sitting in my library, except for literally 2 months ago. 2 months ago, I gave it another shot, and then like me and my 2 friends, we literally all got like Fallout first. We played Fallout 76 basically every day, and it was pretty fire. It was the updated Fallout 76 is pretty fire without a doubt, but back then it was literally nothing. The entire wasteland was an empty wasteland. There was nothing to do. I honestly feel like, don't get me wrong, the multiplayer aspect of the game is really cool, and I enjoy being able to just like play with my friends, see their bases and stuff. But looking back, I think I still would have preferred maybe like, I don't know, either stay solo or like, a solo game, or maybe give me like co-op or something. I think co-op would have worked a lot better than multiplayer, but I'm not a game designer or a publisher, so I don't really know too much. That's just a personal preference. But all I'm saying is, for the people who have played Borderlands, imagine like the same like matchmaking kind of thing, where you basically just join into your friend's world and you follow their quests like Borderlands, but just with the Fallout. I feel like that'll work really well. Before I go on a little bit too much of a tangent with this one thing, I'll just say this, okay? My personal worst game release, my personal worst flop was this game, but there's worse out there, and the game's actually genuinely playable now, so it's not the worst thing to have ever hit the market, and they definitely rebounded. So there's some recovery points that could be given there. It's not the worst on this list, so I'll move on. Still not great. There's a lot of bugs, concerningly large amount of bugs with that game, but whatever, we're moving on. Alright, No Man's Sky. So I can't say that I personally was that interested in this game like everybody else seems like they were, because everybody was hyping the crap out of this game. I didn't really, personally, it wasn't really on the bandwagon as much, but I was super surprised by how badly they underdelivered. Now, I knew for a fact that like No Man's Sky was like, the hype was way too high for the game to actually satisfy everyone who was expecting so much from it. So I knew it was definitely going to be a bit of a letdown whenever it released, but bro, it was the biggest disappointment in gaming history that I've seen in a very long time. Overshadowed by one other game that we'll talk about later, but it's up there. It's one of like the biggest disappointments I've seen in a while. Like, there was no multiplayer, which they talked about being able to like meet people. There was literally just not multiplayer in the game. And then the world just felt so empty, because there was people in there, not even people, there's like some random NPC things. There were like NPC items that you could interact with, but like that was it. And they were all so boring. It just felt like nothing was on the world. It was just you walking around emptiness, flying over to more emptiness, warp speeding into more emptiness. It's just like, what's the point of this? I would like a refund for my time, for every time I've spoken to one of those NPCs, because they didn't do anything for me, my time, the story, whatsoever. It was like, so in my opinion, in my experience, this was definitely the first time that I saw a gaming company get like absolutely shit on this badly. It's definitely been happening more often these days, but just back then, that was the first time I saw it happen, and it was very... Now, obviously, like just like Fallout, They did try to change things afterwards, like updating the games, adding stuff in. I haven't given it a lot of like I haven't gone back and played it for super long. I've maybe tried like a couple hours here and there, but that's about it. I haven't heard horrible things. I just haven't heard great things. If you ask me about No Man's Sky, I have no interest in going back to it.
Whatever, Choom.
Cyberpunk 2077. In my opinion, this is the most catastrophic fail I've ever experienced in gaming history. They got shit on so badly that they had to give their customers the ability to refund their game. And that's on console, by the way. It is incredibly hard to refund games on console. Not to mention that it was like basically unplayable on any of the old gen consoles. I know the PC version was like pretty decent, which it's kind of shady, if I'm gonna be honest with you. Apparently, they only ever sent out PC demos of the game to game reviewers, which is I see you. I see you. That's a red flag. But yeah, they completely forgot to mention that on the PS4 the game basically didn't run, and on the PS5 it was okay, but still a lot of bugs. Plus, the new gen consoles had like at the time had just released, so the PS5 just came out, and I don't know if you guys remember, but it was basically impossible to get one. I was trying to get one for over 6 months, and I just couldn't find one in stock, and I refuse to pay resale value just out of principle. Now I think after what's it called, Cyberpunk 2077 Edgerunners, their anime, they basically had like a resurgence of people trying the game out again, and from what I heard, it was actually not too bad. It's actually really good. Not really good, but acceptable is what I heard. It's enjoyable. Now, from what I've heard, the PC version and the PS5 version, they're definitely like a lot more playable now, less bugs. Actually looks good. Story is pretty good now. Gameplay pretty good. Unfortunately, the old gen like PS4 version still booty water, unfortunately, which is a shame. But yeah, I mean, even with like the resurgence of players and the anime coming out, making it more popular, I don't think the game was able to really get past the bad stigma that was following it around because of the initial release, which is, to be fair, probably what they deserve. Because, I mean, you can't be messing with the community that badly. I feel like, yes, they made strides to be better, but you dug your own grave, okay? And yes, everybody should be given a second chance, but that was such a bad mess up initially that you just kind of have to accept that that one is gone. I also think like this is a good lesson on managing the hype that is around your game, which I don't think I've ever seen any game developer do before, where they're like, you guys are really hyped about this and I just want to like come out and you know like hone in your expectations to what we're going to be releasing here. Like if they had like had a little conference where they were more upfront about what the players can expect, I think people would have been a lot less angry. But they just kept hyping the game up and hyping the game up, and it got to the point where like they destined themselves for failure. If a game does worse than that, then somebody needs to go to jail because that's how bad 77 was. Motherfucking Anthem, boy, let me tell you. I knew this game was gonna flop. Even before it released, I knew it was gonna flop. And that's not me capping, I swear. I promise to you, I knew. I knew for a while the thing is not gonna work out. The actual premise of the game though is pretty solid. I feel like it was the hype and the narrative around the game and its release is kind of what hurt it the most. Because you remember at this time when it was being released, this was when like Destiny was basically taking the gaming industry by storm. They somehow managed to label Anthem as the number one competition for Destiny. And it even got so bad that they were starting to call it like the Destiny killer before the game was even released. Now I'd say if the dev team had literally just came out and been like, yo guys, you need to, back it up a little bit, calm down. We're not trying to compete with Destiny here. I think they would have gotten off a lot better than they did when Anthem first released and flopped so hard. Like the game released with like barely any content, no story. The actual gameplay loop was you're basically doing like the same mission over and over again with very minimum changes. So to be fair, they probably should have not released the game as fast as they did. If they had like actually, because the premise of the game is really cool. I like the idea of like the different like mech suits, and the world looks like it would have some cool ass lore if they actually sat down and worked on it. I think they. I don't have any proof of this, but it seems like they didn't really put much effort into the story or the world. They were just like gameplay, go, you know. So I think if they worked on that, it would have been a lot better. When the game first released, though, I only got like 4 hours in, and I wasn't really that mad because I was game sharing with my cousin. So rip him. But geez, man, I would be very pissed if I actually paid full price for that game, and that's what I got. I was actually surprised by the fact that not many people were as outraged. It was just kind of like it seemed like the game just kind of died. There was not like a huge outrage like there was in Cyberpunk or like Fallout. You know, it was just kind of like everybody left. I would compare it to like Destiny 1 vanilla and then maybe like the Curse of Osiris expansion. Like there was just nothing there. And also, I feel like I didn't hear anything from the game developers. You know, it's just like they just noticed that the game was flopping, and they were like, "Well, that's our life now. Our game died. Move on with our life." I think if they like literally just came out and released like a content schedule or like a development roadmap or something, there was a decent chance the game would stay alive. Like honestly, because that's what Destiny does. And this is if you treat it like a live service game, I think Anthem would still be kicking to this day because the premise was super cool and honestly probably it was just a bit of a letdown if I'm being honest. So I mean, yeah, that was all the ones that pissed people off. If I missed any, I don't think I missed any major ones. Maybe some like PC games because I'm not too in tune with that side of the community. So I probably missed a couple of those. But yeah, those are my list of games that have pissed off people over the years. Thank you. Too later? Maybe. Potential.